Hello, everybody. I am Cheree. I'm the money lady here over at the Gritaverse, and we come once a month in order to talk about building your real estate rental empire. And I always like to bring on a special guest, and today we have a super special guest. All of our guests are super. Um, However, Cory King is down in the Knoxville area. He is a realtor. He runs a real estate team. He is an investor. He is a proud father of four,
Three.
three. I'm
Yeah,
giving him
three
another
boys.
baby.
Yeah.
A proud father, proud husband, and super great guy. So, welcome, Cory.
Sure, you're too kind. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Absolutely. So let's jump into the conversation with regards to today's conversation is about how to buy a property, renovate it, and then rent it out. And
Mhm.
we want to have a conversation from the point of view of people who are looking to build a portfolio, build a legacy, things like that. So why don't you just get started with a little bit about yourself, how you got into real estate investing, and then I'll ask you additional questions in order to pull gems out of you. And I will say to anybody that if you want to ask a question, you can put it in the chat. And if I call on you, you're welcome to come off mute and ask your question because we're a small, intimate group here today. So, but Cory, I'll let you go first.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much again for having me on. Always grateful to be able to just, share some insights and help people out is something I'm truly passionate about. So my name's Cory King. I'm an agent investor here in Knoxville, as Sheree mentioned. I've been doing that for about 6 years here, running like the real estate side of things in Knoxville. But I really started my investing journey back in 2009 when I was just a first-time home buyer at 22 and started down the house hacking path of buying a home as a primary, getting into it, renting out the other two bedrooms, offset my income. And from the investing side, it grew then from that to finding a bit of a niche in 2010, 11, 12, where I was going to auctions in East Central Florida, where I lived at the time, and was buying mostly like collectibles and things like that. These are auctions where it's cars, boats, tools, collectibles, and real estate would happen to filter through that. There was certain foreclosures going on at the time, and so I found a fun little niche where I was buying vacant lots in subdivisions that kind of crashed in '08, where builders went out and you had all these halfway built subdivisions around Florida, and I found a little hole in the market or opportunity there where I could buy those lots between, say, people's houses, where it was a house, vacant lot, a house. And so I'd buy those lots, and then I was able to sell them directly just to the neighbors, because like who else better to buy than the neighbor next door? And the average deal was like a $3,000 lot that I could sell for about 8,000 bucks and make a bit of a spread there. And so that was a lot of fun. That kind of really helped me learn the ropes a little bit of how to create kind of arbitrage, how to find opportunities and invest in. God, I wish I still had like 10 of those lots, because they were 3,000 at the time, but now they're 30, $40,000 a piece.
That's one thing that Rob always talks about. It's like you think about the stuff that you sold and you're like, darn, why did I
uh,
do
it's
that?
the plight of every investor, right? Should have bought more and
Yes.
sold less. Those
Yes.
are just the growing pains, the things we just kind of have to go through along the journey. And so I did that, for a while, which was a lot of fun. And then fast forward to my wife and I relocating here to Knoxville and getting into real estate sales was really something that, coming out of the restaurant hospitality world. So I was a restaurant owner operator for my 20s there in Florida, and coming here, I knew I didn't want to stay down that path, but I appreciated the owner operator side of the business, sort of the autonomy that I had in that. And so, having some peers that had gotten into real estate sales, I was like, well, heck, if they could do it, like, so could I. And so that led me down the path to getting my license, really as a space to, be an agent, be an investor. I loved the opportunity I had to be able to, find and buy and sell my own stuff, which was really cool. And through that, discovered a bit of a hole in the market here locally, where there really wasn't any kind of agent or team that necessarily specialized in working with investors, say, in this market. And so we continue just to focus on that niche. And now here we are, about 6 years in, and that still drives a good amount of our business, is just working with investors, folks that are brand new, always been reading a lot of or listening to a lot of podcasts, reading books, but really haven't taken action. We love working with those folks and helping them find their first deal. And we also work with seasoned investors who've been in the game a long time and are maybe looking to diversify their portfolio in a way. So we love it. I mean, that's really kind of in a nutshell how we got here to this point.
I love the fact that you started at 21. What caused you? What was the thing that clicked? Were you like always
Uh,
entrepreneurial or?
So that's a great question. So yeah, I mean, certainly raised by a single parent. And so with that was largely left to my own devices. So I'm
Mhm.
also an only child.
Me too.
So, right. So used to, number one, kind of like having my way, I guess to a degree. I'm
Uh-huh.
kind of impatient in that point as well. And yeah, like kind of just had to be self-reliant at that point. Again, like single parent household, mom was working and also going to night school. So I was
Hmm.
kind of left to my own devices from a pretty early age and just had to figure it out. So I've always
Hmm.
been very driven, take it all on my own. Like I'll just go do it. I'll just make it happen. Right. But how I, bought my first house was largely driven, I guess, out of maybe FOMO or ego to a degree where I was, 21, 22 and seeing peers of mine that were graduating college at the time. And I did not go down that path, right?
Hmm.
I quit school at 17 in my senior year and really just went into working full time there. And so for me, it was like, okay, well, what do I have to show for myself at this age, right? Like I said, it was just kind of like ego driven more so than
Hmm.
anything of like, well, I've got peers that are graduating college. What do I have to show for myself at this point in time? And so for me, the logic that I made in there was, oh, I could just own a house, right?
Hmm.
100 grand in debt one way or the other. So let's just go
Right.
ahead and do the house. So that was largely how I just got started on that. I wish I could say it was like with this forward thinking of I'm
Hmm.
going to be this whole, no, it was largely just FOMO and ego
Yeah.
kind of driven to it. But like grateful I went down that path, certainly.
Yeah. Tell us about the first property that you bought and renovated.
Yeah. So the first reno property, I mean, this is such a good one. Like we drive so much. So I've driven so many lessons from this. So like my first real renovation one was this. It also happened to be a historic home as well. So 120 years old and, naively thought that this would be some kind of 5 month $50,000 kind of reno, and it turned out to be 11 months and about $110,000 in renovation into there. So I learned a lot with that one.
That's a life lesson there.
A
Yes.
hundred percent, 100%. I learned one like how to plan for unforeseen things, because
Hmm.
appearing surface level, I thought, this is all going to be mostly it's like surface level. I didn't account for the $30,000 in termite damage and framing and foundation work that had to go into that thing, right?
Wow.
And so I quickly blew through my renovation budget. I used a hard money loan for it and blew through my renovation quite quickly. And I was like, oh man, we're still 6 months and 60 grand short. And I had to just hustle that out. Like that was purely just had to find a way to make the money to keep that project going. Because otherwise I was just at a standstill.
Right, right.
Yeah, it was
So
it was
so
a
did
lot.
so did you flip that house or did you keep it and
No,
rent it
so
out or
kept it and rented it, right? So I
interesting?
kept it. I knew that my original plan was actually to do more of like a midterm rental with that, but it's also
Hmm.
in a neighborhood that supports student rentals as well. And so I was confident on the math, right? Like I was confident on
Hmm.
what my ARV was. I was confident what my rents were gonna be, which at the time was like $3,200 a month in rent, by really niching down. If I took just a long-term rental approach for a home like that, realistically, it's probably in the 23 to $2,500 a month range from a long-term
Hmm.
rental standpoint. But because I chose to really niche down and say focus on students for that neighborhood, it now rents for we just re-signed the lease for 3650 a month
Very
on that
good.
one. Yeah, right.
Very, very
Uh,
good.
so I
Which
ended up
student
keeping.
student rentals are considered medium-term rentals
Yeah,
because
or,
it's
or
not for a full year.
yeah, so in that, I have they sign a full year lease. It's July to
Hmm.
July. So if they're
Oh,
not there
okay.
for May through July, like
You still get
okay,
your money.
rent's
Yeah.
still due,
Mm-hmm.
they could sublease it out, I guess, if they wanted to, but largely they
Mm-hmm.
haven't. There's 4 or 5 guys that live in that house, and
Mm-hmm.
some will leave for the summers. Usually one person hangs around, picks up a job or does something in
Okay.
town. So it's never really vacant at any point, which is,
Cool.
again, cool
Which
for
which
me.
you really don't want your rental to be vacant. You kind of do
Yeah, no.
want somebody living there. Do mom and dad for the student rentals? Do mom and dad have to guarantee? Are they undergrads?
Absolutely. So,
Mm-hmm.
so most of them, so specifically for students, I like to rent for like upperclassmen, juniors and seniors. At
Mm-hmm.
UT, University of Tennessee here, freshmen have to stay in the dorms their first year.
Mm-hmm.
So like they're there, and then it's the sophomores that kind of spring out. But I'm not going for essentially 19 or 20-year-olds that are really just
Mm-hmm.
learning how to do life, on their
Mm-hmm.
own. I'm looking for upperclassmen, junior, seniors, grad students that are looking to sign, say, 2-year leases. Yes, to that point, parents co-sign. Everybody's on one lease. So I'm not chasing everybody around for their individual shares. Like they
Mm-hmm.
figure out how they want to pool their money. I collect one check every month with the parents guaranteeing it on the backside.
Fantastic. So let's pretend like you are ChatGPT, you're Corey GPT, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And we're going to input a prompt that says, I'm thinking about buying and renovating and renting a property. I know that I want to do this as my first thing. Corey
Mm-hmm.
GPT, give me the 5 mistakes
Mm,
that I should avoid and the 5 things that I should do. So, and we'll start
cool.
with the 5 mistakes that I should avoid if you
Sure.
were to give 5 lessons.
Yeah. Thinking you're going to do all of it by yourself. Like you need to have a team. So don't
Okay.
plan on just doing this all yourself as far as you're going to be the one to do all the rehab or figure a lot of that stuff. Like, no, right? Especially if you've never done any kind of uh, significant amounts of rehab. Like paint is like one thing, right? But I'm talking about any kind of anything beyond that, you should really be looking for help at the end of the day. So really kind of thinking that you're going to do it on your own is oftentimes one of the biggest mistakes I see people doing. Um, know your true cost of renovation like to that as well, right? Like bring in somebody else as a third party contractor, somebody to help just double check your math on that as well. Don't buy something without a home inspection. Learned that mistake there real quick. I brought an inspector through that project. But we did kind of a walk and talk inspection. It wasn't necessarily as thorough. I knew there was some termite damage to that home. I didn't know to what extent. I thought it was going to be, hey, we have to replace 1 or 2 floor joists, not 14, right? Uh, so bringing in extra help is a big one. So make sure you don't think you're gonna do it on your own. Get real like quotes in hand, and that is going to be another one. Um, have a good lender, have somebody who's pretty flexible in that. So like know how you're going to finance this thing as well. Is this going to be like a construction loan, or are you going to use, say, a private or a hard money lender in that? I certainly love that, but having a good relationship with a hard money lender, like I did in that project, and they were very gracious to grant me an extension on my loan because certainly that thing ballooned, and I had no way to pay them back in a timely fashion. I needed, essentially another 3 or 6 month extension on that loan. And hey, we just baked in some points on the back end of the loan. He gave me the option of, hey, you can pay 2 points now to extend this out 6 months, or you can pay three on the backside. I took three on the backside because I needed the cash in hand. I didn't have that to just give it to him in terms of points. So really having an awesome lender that you've got a good personal relationship with, you can have those honest conversations with it. If you get in a bit of a squeeze, we're here to solve problems at the end of the day, right? I think that's kind of three. I'm
That
kind of
was
fishing
four.
for number.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So, uh,
Fish for kind of number five in that, right?
okay, well, you think about that. Let me just repeat. The four you've done thus far is thinking you can do it alone. No, no, no. You need a team. Number two is messing up on your renovation costs. So knowing the true cost of your renovations and having a contractor double check your math. Number three, not getting a home inspection. That's a no-no. Number four is not having a great relationship with a great flexible lender is what I'll say is a mistake.
Yeah.
So you want to find a
Um,
good lender. And then
yeah.
number five for Corey
Number five,
GPT.
make sure you have multiple. like exits on anything, right? You got options in there. Could you flip it? Could you can you rent it out? Can you niche specific rent it out?
Mhm.
So having multiple exits, whether you're thinking you're going to flip something, do the numbers make sense that if you had to keep that as a rental, does it still pencil as a rental? So having multiple exits, right, on a
Yeah.
project. Don't just have one singular outcome that you're like putting all your eggs in one basket.
It has to be that. Yeah. So from a lending point of view, I like the idea of the multiple exits. And especially if you're working with a hard money lender or a private lender, that's not getting money from institutions, like they're actually doing their own underwriting. Um, Knowing that you have multiple exits and you could either sell it, or if you sold it, but like, for example, there were a lot of price reductions for the
Mhm.
last month or so in the Metro DC area. If we had to shave off 5-10% off the price, could you still make a profit?
Yep.
One of the things from a lending point of view is if you get to a point where you're not going to make a profit anymore, we get worried that you're going to walk away from the project, right?
Mhm.
Unless you have really, really good credit and a government job, or you have to keep good credit, right? So we're looking for that as well. And when you're having that conversation with that great lender, hopefully us over here, then, letting them know like, hey, I intend to flip this thing. However, if I need to refinance this into a DSCR loan, um, I can still do it. And the rental income, so for those of you who are not familiar, DSCR loans, fancy term, simple concept. Does the rental income pay for the mortgage? Does the rental income pay for the mortgage? So basically, they send an appraiser, and the appraiser will not only get the value overall of the property, but they'll also let the underwriter know this property is going to rent for $2,500 a month, right? Not, they will not count the student housing hack that Cory has. They'll just a long-term rental to a regular family, right? They're signing a
Mhm.
long-term lease. They'll say this property is going to rent out at $2,500. And then they're going to look at your mortgage, including your principal and interest, your taxes, your insurance, and if there's any HOA fees, they're going to count that as well. And they're going to
Mhm.
ask, does that $2,500 pay for all of those things? And if the answer is yes, and you've got a decent credit score, then we know we can refinance you there. So, you've
Yep.
got two different options there with regards to um, paying off the lender, let's say it like that,
Yeah.
or multiple exits, like Cory is saying. So, what did I forget there with regards to that, Cory, the multiple exits?
Well, I mean, just in that, like you nailed it in terms of just knowing that the bank's going to want to make sure that this can at least be covered, right? Like I'd already done
Mhm.
my math on the front end to knowing that, hey, as I refinance this out, the note is going to be somewhere probably in that $2,400 a month range. So I was at least confident again that, all right, like this is going to maybe break even for me. It might not, worst case scenario, it's just not going to cash flow. I'm just going to have my money like kind of sunk there. And that's
Mhm.
that. Uh, I was confident though that at least if I went with my niche route of either like midterm or students, I was definitely going to cash flow at that point, which is what paid
Mhm.
off. Now, to that point, as I went through that and did my refinance on that, because I was so over on my reno, I actually had to leave money in it. Like I had enough in the refinance to pay back my lenders, but that extra like 60 grand that I basically went over was left in that project. I had
Mhm.
to just kind of eat that for a while, um, for the market to appreciate, for my rent to grow, that I could wait maybe a year and hey, refinance this based on the actual income that it's driving, not necessarily on the projected income, which is what
Mhm.
I did, right? Is I had to wait it out for about a year to refi it again to do pull some money out, but I still didn't pull all of my money out. I've still got 20 to 30 grand like kind of sunk into that house still. I'll either have to wait another couple of years to do that, or I just, leave it and it is what it
You
is.
leave
I'm
it
just
in
going to
there.
collect it
Yeah.
over time. And that's fine for me too.
Yeah, because you seem to have cash flow within that property, then you
Mhm.
could leave it in there, or you could, at some point, the market will appreciate enough where you're able to pull that cash out. And I'll let people know from a lending point of view, if Corey is able to show either 12 months or 24 months um, of income, his student rental income, there are ways for certain lenders to be able to look at the money coming into your bank account. Okay, we're going to count that rental income because we actually see that cash coming into your account. So
Mhm.
so that's where you also want to work with a good lender that is also able to kind of think outside the box and have multiple places where they can go and present your loan to, if you're dealing with a broker. I will say one thing about that though.
Mhm.
If you're working with a lender, one of the questions you want to ask is, how many loans have you personally closed with this company that you're bringing me to? The
Mhm.
reason for that, and I learned this the hard way, is I was working with a client and we let the lender know up front, all of these things. One of the issues was it was a rural property, and the borrower had two, and it was extensive. Sorry, it was a rural property, extensive reno. They're trying to do a short-term rental, and the borrower had two um, successful renovations, but the lender required three successful renovations. And then they didn't tell us that until the 11th hour. So, you know, part of a good lender is like really vetting wherever they're going to send your loan to. Whether for us it's like institutional or whether we have a private lender, we have this private lender, great. Are they actually going to close the loan? Because that's the one
Mhm.
thing that can mess up your EMD, and you actually putting your money at risk is, trying to save $4 a month, in a mortgage payment, but going to somebody who can't close the loan. So
Mhm.
yes. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. Um, so I love these. What are some other things that people should? So we talked about the mistakes,
Mhm.
but are there a couple of things that people should do? Let's say with regards to picking a property. One of the
Mhm.
things that Rob talks about, for example, Rob Chavez, who runs Grid, and many of the people I hope on here know who he is. He talks about zone, and he talks about picking a target area. We've talked continuously about having a buy box, people kind of thinking about that. What are some of your suggestions with regards to people deciding on a buy box, their strategy, again, for newbies?
Yeah. So I love that. So a couple things that come into play. Number one, you're right. Zone was something I have kind of written down, which talk about
Mhm,
is really kind of zeroing in on your target market. Um, so if you want like kind of ways to help I identify that of like what might be good areas to invest, one cheat or hack I've used when I'm identifying areas is uh, I'm looking for like certain stores, for example, Target, great example.
mhm, mhm,
Aldi, grocery store. These are companies that do an extreme amount of due diligence on the front end before they ever put a shovel in the dirt and decide where they're going to plant their store. They already know like the demographics of the area, the general street traffic, the median income, et cetera. Like leverage those companies, right? They've already done their due diligence on the front end. So I'll look it up if I'm analyzing a market, I'm going to look for some of those stores. I'm going to say like, all right, where's the targets in this market? And I'm going to look for about like a 3 mile or so radius around that target, or Publix or Aldi's, like you name it, right? Harris Teeter, I think might be like some different markets as well. Like looking for those areas and then picking kind of a radius around that and starting there. Because again, they've already done their research on the front end to know that this can actually support that. So that will help as well, because that's usually in the path of progress and growth, stable incomes, etc. That help really that really do that. Certainly talk with a good agent, tell them
mhm,
what you're looking to do, find a good realtor and say, here's what I'm looking to do. What might be some areas I should look for that are going to be maybe below the median home value for the area that's still in a growth trajectory, right? Like I have a favorite zip code for me is in Knoxville is 37921. If anybody ever comes across anything in 37921, whether it's land, commercial, multifamily, single family, like, I want to be the person they think about. So telling everybody that you know what areas you want to invest in, because then people will reward that. If they know specifically where you want to buy, the universe will tend to provide that versus just saying, well, I just want a good deal. Well, yeah, me and everybody, me too, dude. You know what I mean? But if you can at least say specifically, I want to buy here, here, or here, well, people now know how to reward that. They know how to actually give that back. So, like, knowing your target market, where would you want to invest? Where would you want to live? It could be very easy as that, is like starting around your own neighborhood. Where do you already live? You picked that area for a reason. So that too can be a metric to aim for. Risk tolerance is the other thing I kind of wrote down to that. Like how big of a renovation project do you want to do? Do you want to go down the full route like I did of like, hey, this could be a whole gut reno, or I'm doing one right now. I just left that work that's in the same neighborhood that, because I've already been through this journey before, I kind of knew what to expect. So the project I'm on now is a $90,000 renovation on a 130-year-old house that's exactly it. Like I have to tear everything apart and re-put it all back together. But because I've already been down that path, pretty cool as a cucumber walking through this one, what would otherwise probably terrify a lot of folks.
Right.
So
I
so
do.
knowing
Can
like your
I,
risk
can,
tolerance.
yeah, can I talk about that? Because
Mhm.
if somebody is new, whenever people come to me and they ask my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I try to tell people for your very first one, try to find something that is carpet, paint, new appliances.
Mhm.
Like, you know, in my opinion, if you are a newbie, staying away from the full gut reno, anything that could potentially be a full gut reno. Um, maybe, the kitchens, maybe changing out the kitchen cabinets or
Yeah.
something like that. But as a newbie, at least what I found, anything with structural issues, anything with like major renovations, they're
Mhm.
also harder to get somebody to finance it for you if you're new. Because we're like,
Yeah.
how do we know you know what you're doing? How do we know the contractor is going to show up for you? How do you know the contractor is going to
Yeah.
show up? You know, um, and the worst thing you could tell a lender is you're going to be your own contractor unless you are
Yeah.
a licensed general contractor that has done these things before. That's the worst thing you can say.
Yeah.
So,
And given, because we're talking about, rentals, and so I'll kind of share one of my thoughts on that overall. Like one of my rules, right, is like thou shalt not buy pre 1970. I just stick with that as kind of a rule for me for like things I'm going to hold long term.
now
Because
why?
before that, so
Okay.
that's a great question. So number one, it's already 50 something years old as a
Mm-hmm.
house, if we're talking pre and is right. So that's going to come with some challenges. Number two, then you've got like outdated building practices. You've probably got clay or cast iron plumbing or galvanized plumbing in there, outdated electrical, possible asbestos like in there. There's just more hazards and risks that come with that that kind of steer me away, even for things I'm intending to hold longer term. I really don't want anything that's already going to be older than that. Outside of course, here I am talking about renovating homes that are 130 years old.
I was thinking that because you
That's
said you
fair.
do
No, you're right
historic.
now. But the only reason I do that is because of this specific neighborhood, right? Like
Mm,
if you look around Knoxville, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of homes that were built between like 1900 and 1940, right? I don't do anything in those homes unless it's in this one specific neighborhood, which is Mechanicsville here in Knoxville, because I have a niche that I'm servicing, which is that midterm or student housing niche. And I do that because of its proximity to the university in downtown. It's the
mhm,
closest neighborhood to the university in downtown that's not already, say, a largely student rental base. Like we got a neighborhood, Fort Sanders, which is
mhm.
90% student housing here. So this is the neighborhood like just outside of the fort. So I have a specific niche, but I don't do anything in in the other older homes otherwise. I go kind of
Okay.
out more into the suburbs that are going to be 1970 or newer at that point, because I'm playing a largely buy and hold game. Like I'm holding on to properties for 15, 20 years. I don't want to buy something that's already 80 years old. It's going to be 100 years old when I'm looking to sell it, or it's already 100 years old. It's going to be 120 when I want to sell it. No, I'll buy
Mm-hmm.
something that's maybe 50 years old at the
Mm-hmm.
oldest, that's going to be 70 years old when I'm ready to exit on that. So yeah, like zoning your market and really knowing like your risk tolerance, especially your first one, I would of course echo that. Go for paint, flooring, fixtures, just a surface level updates,
Yes.
kind of, right? Maybe you got to put a roof on it or something like that. Like a new roof doesn't scare me. That's a 1 day job, and it's good for 30 years at that point. But yeah, your first one should definitely be surface level.
Yeah. What about distance? So,
Hmm.
a couple of the super smart investors that I have worked with or have known have said that they, for their very first like two or three, they will stay within 50 miles of where they live, and they'll do a radius.
Hmm.
The reason for that is because you could drive there within an hour. So you can go check on the property, you can go check on the rehabs that's being done, make sure that the construction people know what they're doing. I was laughing with somebody. She said that she does pop-up visits, right? And she was
Hmm.
like, they were putting in the vanity wrong. So I had to go in there like and check on them and say, no, 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 this is where, the way that I want it done. It's not necessarily that they're not working, it's just that they're not doing it the way that you want it done, right? And
Yeah,
I like that as a rule of thumb of, and 50 miles is a lot
that's
when you're looking at a
far. I was gonna say, yeah,
radius.
that's far. I
Yeah,
would
a
even like
50 mile.
cut
You
that in
can,
half. For me, it's
you
half.
could.
You know, I'm
Yeah.
I'm no more than 30 minutes to any of my rentals. I'm within probably between 20 and 30 minutes drive, depending on like traffic, right?
Mm-hmm.
From any of them for that exact
Mm-hmm.
reason. I
Mm-hmm.
want to be able to swing by as I'm running errands or I'm going about like my week. I want to be able to pop by any of them to just even do a drive by walk,
Mm-hmm.
a drive by on it is
Mm-hmm.
huge. Definitely nothing that's going to be, maybe out of state or across the country kind of thing. Cause I've seen some of those go really sideways for
Yeah.
for folks.
Yeah. The only time that, and I don't know how successful they were. I just know people were buying them. Like they live in the Metro DC area, but they're buying in Ohio because their family is
Sure.
there. But and they grew up there, obviously, right? But you have to have like really dependable family that's going to go check on the property, all of that as well. So,
Hmm.
so I have seen that. So let me see here. I had a little list here. I kind of wanted to go through some of the financing that's
Hmm.
available and then open it up for questions. Did you have anything else to add,
Cool.
Cory?
Just kind of on that point, the last part of there was, just especially if it's your first one, being open to partnerships, right?
Hmm.
Partner with somebody who's gone down that path before. You might be coming in as a capital partner in that you got some money to lend, you work out some kind of equity split or return on your money. That's somebody who's going to kind of show you the rope. But that goes back to like just don't always try to go it alone, especially on your first one. You really should be looking for a partner in that, somebody who has some experience, who will like walk you through it step by step, who might serve as a general partner, and you might be just kind of a limited partner in that deal. Again, you maybe bring some money to the table to help fund and finance the deal, but somebody who's got the experience and know-how, has the contractor relationships to help manage that project, and they'll kind of walk you through it step by step, is huge. Again, just don't try to go it alone. Look for a partner, in
I agree
fact.
with that. So I did some flips in the early 2000s, and the best thing I did was bring in a partner with experience and do the 50-50 profit split, right?
Mhm.
Um, because I didn't lose money, right? So many people lose money on their first couple of deals.
Yeah.
I didn't, because I had that person who was like, okay, we're going to
Yep.
do it like this, we're looking out for this, things like that. In that specific situation, I brought the deal. I didn't have to bring the
Hmm.
capital. They
Nice.
actually, one we did was a lease option, so it was creative. The other one, I can't remember what it was, but I didn't have to bring capital either. I brought the deal. And then
Nice.
and let me tell you something with active people like Cory and people like that, if you bring them a deal and you're like, but I want to look over your shoulder, they're like all day long, you know, I look over your shoulder and I'll take a piece of the profit. They're like all day long.
Hmm.
So that's a great way for you to kind of get your first deals done and get that experience. And from a lending point of
Yeah,
view, we'll give you something called an experience worksheet, and you're able to put those first two or three
that's cool.
deals that you had on with the partner, and your lending terms become a lot more favorable because you've had those successful first two deals that you've
Hmm.
done.
Yeah,
So,
I love doing those. I love doing joint
mhm,
ventures. Typically what I found is like where I, come to play in that is typically I'm the one who's able to kind of find the deal and has the contractor relationships to help set the play up. And I love
mhm,
just bringing in somebody who wants to be a capital partner in that, and we'll walk through it. Same thing,
mhm.
split on the backside of it. Yeah,
Right.
I love that.
Right, right. Absolutely. So you could play either way. You could be the capital
Hmm.
partner and you connect with somebody like a Cory or, some of the people if you're in the DMV area, and say, you find a deal, I'll bring the money. Or you could be the person that brings a deal and Cory has has resources to capital. So
Yep.
and he'll bring the capital and the contractor, and then, and
Hmm.
either way would work.
Yep.
So for my people who don't have as much money, there's still a way for you to get involved.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to just talk really quickly about how you can actually buy properties, renovate them, and then rent them out. So I'm going to start off with the low down payment way, because I always get Cheree, I don't have a lot of money. Can I do it the low down payment way? The answer is yes, but you have to live in the property for at least 12 months. So you're gonna end up buying a property and it's going to be your primary residence, your primary home. There's two major loan programs that I like to use for this. One is a conventional loan called the home style renovation loan. So you're able to research that. The other is the FHA loan called the 203K loan. With either of these loans, you are able to purchase the property. You are able to do not only paint and carpet and new appliances, but you're able to fix the roof. You're able to get a brand new kitchen, a brand new bathroom. You're able to do landscaping, inside and out. And the great thing is, I'm going to use this for simple math, right? The great thing is, let's say after the renovations are done, that house is going to be worth $100,000. You can borrow between the purchase and the renovation costs up to $100,000 minus your down payment. Okay. So for an FHA loan, you could borrow 96,500 and you could put down $3,500 and get the money to buy the house and renovate it. The other thing I forgot to mention, sorry, I forgot to mention this. You're also able to add walls and knock walls down. So if you go with an investor friendly agent like a Cory or someone on his team, I see Travis is here, Hui is here. Those guys in Knoxville know how to do these things. They're able to basically go in with you from a house hacking point of view, because that's what this is, and say, okay, you're a single guy, single girl. You can live in the basement. You could do these renovations, live in the basement, and a family could rent the top levels. Or if you have a family like Matt Megel, one of our
Mhm.
CASA agents, he lives in the top part and he rents out. It was actually already rented out when he bought the property, the basement, right? But you're able to include things within the construction budget that lays it out for it to be easier for you to get the other part of the house rented out. Now, even with additional dwelling units, there are some lenders now that will finance either an attached additional dwelling unit or a detached additional dwelling unit as well. So
Wow.
it is about working with a really good lender and working with a really good investor agent, a real estate agent who's investor friendly, and just being creative with regards to what you're able to do. Um, if you that's so primary residence is part one, right? Part two is if it's just going to be an investment property, you are able to get loans anywhere from 6 months to 18 months in order to purchase the property, renovate it, and then you're either going to sell it or you're going to refinance it. So the lenders are going to look at the after renovation value, and they're going to look at the total cost of the loan. And usually there's some sort of, there's a couple of different calculations that they do in order to tell you, like, okay, here's how much we'll give you as a loan, and you have to bring the rest. Uh, Depending on your negotiation skills, there are some lenders out there that will give you all the money in order to purchase and renovate the property. I can connect you to those people, but usually the purchase and renovation cost cannot be more than 70%, 70% of the after renovation value. And then we also have lenders, you'll have to bring a little bit of money to the table, but you're able to get the money to buy and renovate the property, and then you can refinance it into that DSCR loan, which is where the bank will look, or the lender will look at the rental income. They'll look at the mortgage and they'll say, can the rental income pay the mortgage? So the final thing I will say, and then I'll toss it over to Cory, because I know he knows a lot about the money aspect as well. The final thing I will say is, with the rates the way that they are now, we have a lot of people coming to us. We didn't do their initial fix and flip loan. We didn't do their initial 12-month loan, but now they're coming to us and they cannot refinance without bringing money to the table, to the closing table, because their cost of purchasing and renovating the property is more than what lenders across the board are willing to refinance for. We're seeing that a lot. So a great lender is going to not only make sure you can get into the first part, which is the buying and renovating loan, but also that you'll be able to refi at the end of the day. So we do that for our clients. So thoughts, Cory, with regard to all the things that I said?
I mean, I love those. I really wish more people were using the like home style renovation or the FHA 203K product. It's really an amazing deal, especially now where you've got folks that are liquidating homes, you got investors that are liquidating homes that could maybe still use some work, and you can come in and work to negotiate a good deal on that, but probably get some closing costs covered as part of that deal, etc. And then go to the bank that will totally fund the purchase and the renovation of something. We had a listing last year that was in South Knoxville, there across the river, and great basement ranch on a couple of acres, 5-10 minutes from downtown, just like stellar location. But the home was in rough shape, right? But I love that that buyer came in and used an FHA 203K loan, because the home's worth, like fixed up, is worth $500,000 easy. They bought it for about 200, somewhere around that range. Financed probably about $150,000, like in Reno. But they just have such a massive upside on
Yeah,
that to be
that's
able to get
amazing
in, like,
equity. Yeah.
crazy good equity, right? Crazy good equity that they got in for, you know, uh, $10,000, $12,000, in total,
Mhm.
like out of pocket expenses for that, like insane.
Yes.
I would do that
Yes.
trade all day long if I was a buyer right now, is go through that. There's a little bit more red tape to go through that. And if the
Hmm.
bank's just looking to make sure that you have, a contractor who's doing the work, they're going to go out and want to just double check all the math on it. Totally understandable. So it
Hmm.
takes a little bit longer to close from my
Yes.
experience, can be anywhere
About
from like
40 days.
45, to 60
Hmm.
days. I'd say like 6 to 8
Hmm.
weeks as opposed to 4 or 5 weeks. But
Hmm.
all in all, it's not bad. It's a great loan product. I just really wish I saw more buyers using that right now, honestly.
I do too. I push it so much because it is great, especially from an investor point of view. If you're investor focused, being able to go find a property, we have a lot of people who are aging in place, who are passing away. One of the
Yes.
members on our team specializes in working with probate attorneys to sell
Hmm.
houses. Well, suppose you were one of the first people he called on his list to say, hey, I got this great property, but it's dated. you could go in and be able to purchase that property and renovate the property. Um, we have like you said, investors as well, especially, I don't know if the economy is going to turn or not, but if it does, there are going to be investors who are looking
Mhm.
to get rid of certain properties, and you only have to live there for 12 months. You
That's
live
it.
there,
Yep.
you live there, you renovate the property, and then if you want to go move someplace else, it.
And rinse. You could rinse and repeat. You could really be
Mm-hmm,
squared away in 5 to 7 years time
mm-hmm,
if you just kind of follow that model. You
mm-hmm.
can be a net worth millionaire within 5 to 7 years,
Yeah, you
just
just need to make sure
leveraging.
you have enough income. I'll be honest
Sure.
with that. You need to make
Yep.
sure that you make enough money in order to do that. But yes, you could absolutely buy, I would say even a house every 18 to 24
Hmm.
months,
Yep.
just and Dan Nice, who's another member of our CASA team. I keep referring to all of our members, but he said, instead of just moving up, you could just move over, you
Laterally.
know,
Yep.
you move laterally. And that's how a lot of people make their numbers work as well.
Mhm.
The other thing I will tell you with regards to being a lender and doing that is be careful how you do your taxes. And I'm not going to go into it here, but Delonta knows, that I preach this. So if you're thinking of doing the move up or move over strategy, talking to someone like me, who is an investor focused lender, and being able to say, you want to watch out for these things on your taxes because your CPA is going to do their job and they're going to try to minimize your taxes. However, if they do it in such a way that we as the lender cannot give you your next loan because your taxes are done in a specific way, then it's not going to work. So I'm just warning you now that um, doing the move up or move over strategy does work, but you need to be guided from like the very beginning, from at least the lending point of view. And I would say from a realtor point of view as well, with how you're
Yeah.
going to do that. So I may hold some classes on it, but I'm scared people won't come. And it's a boring topic, but it's so
So
like
much
once
value
you
though.
get it, there's a lot of value to it. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just one of those things where just people don't know, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
so much of us grow up in households where we don't talk about money, politics, or
Mm-hmm.
religion. So like, how do
Mm-hmm.
you even know
Yeah.
what to do, in that? So, and we live in such an amazing age of information now where it's so readily accessible compared to even just like a decade ago, right? Like
Yeah.
it just we're
Yeah,
so
it's
just
true.
early into like social media and just like internet and just it's only in recent years that a lot of this info has been just so readily available that
Mm-hmm.
it's out there, you know.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So we have 10 minutes left. We've got some great people on. I want to give people a chance to unmute yourselves and ask Cory, how many rentals do you own now?
We have five and then our primary so far.
Okay, so he owns five rentals. So this is a great opportunity for you to ask somebody who's in the trenches for their advice. And if not, then I do have another question for you, but I want to see who comes
Sure.
off mute.
Yeah, yeah, open to it. Yeah, for sure. Ask away. I'm an open book.
So when you buy these houses, I guess say there's just like, you're buying the purpose for this house just to rent it out, but you don't want to live there. Is that where the DSCR loan comes in?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Then that's money down as well, 20% down or
DSCRs can go as low as 15% down, but if you're going to buy the property to renovate it, you would need that 12-month loan first in order to buy the property and renovate it, and then you would refinance into a DSCR. If you don't need any money to rehab the property, um, then you can just go right into a DSCR loan. The only thing I would say is if it's a major renovation, you don't want to do that because when the appraiser goes in for the DSCR, they're going to look at the condition of the property and say, this is how much this property can rent for now. So that's where your strategy needs to come in a little bit. Hope I didn't overcomplicate it, but
no, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to see. I'm assuming interest rates are typically higher in that, so you have to make the rent work in terms of that. I would assume
Yeah,
they
they're
would
pretty
look
comparable.
into
I
that
mean,
first.
I quoted DSCR to somebody this morning for 6.875 to 7%. Yeah,
Sweet.
they're pretty comparable to what you would get for a primary home. Unless the numbers don't work or unless you have like bad credit.
Hmm.
But if you have decent
Gotcha.
credit, we're fine. Mhm. Michael, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
I just wanted to ask, how do you go about finding kind of areas or properties that cash flow well? I mean, I'm in a kind of a higher income zip code or higher property value zip code where that doesn't seem to happen. So, there's kind of a balance there, I guess.
Yeah, so I can kind of dive into that. I mean, certainly, yeah, I myself live in a fairly more like affluent area in terms of like where the median household income is higher. So I feel like I don't necessarily like buy my investment properties there, but I buy just adjacent to it, right? Like the zip code that I buy in 37921 is adjacent to some of these other more like affluent areas that I can buy at a slightly like lower price point, but people can still access the same amenities to it within about a 10-minute drive, right? So I kind of look for that. I look for areas that are maybe about 10 to 20% below the median home value, that's still within close enough proximity to the areas maybe like where I live, right? And it gives me like some good runway. Like as I see Knoxville has a pretty consistent, steady like appreciation in that, and our median home price is around 400,000 bucks. I'm looking at homes that have that ARV or that after repair value around 350 or less, between 300 and 350. And I'm then looking for stuff that I can do some value add in there. Or I can just, if you maybe don't want to take on something that needs heavier rehab, then it's okay to buy in those. It's maybe more of a turnkey investment because you just have, I look at that because I have more runway to go as the area is going to continue to appreciate. I've got a nice extra buffer there for growth where some areas might stagnate out. The zip codes or areas that I buy, they're going to continue to appreciate right up to that median home price before anything would start to fall.
Yeah, I would also say you're able to work with a realtor as well and ask what, like, let's say you want to, because I hear so many people say this, I want a good 3 2s, right? 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom. You can ask them for different areas, maybe different either zip codes or different communities. Hey, what's the rental income? And if you're working with that realtor, then they'll tell you, okay, the rental income is X number of dollars, right? And then you're able to look on the other side. I would just give you a general 7% mortgage right now for anything, right? So your principal and interest is going to be 7%, include your taxes, insurance, and any HOA, and you can quickly do the math and see if you would cash flow in that neighborhood. And then from there, you're able to then um, look for properties in those specific neighborhoods.
Mhm.
But nice working class neighborhoods is always what I hear is best.
Mhm.
Yeah. Do you have
And,
another question, Michael? Is
nope,
that good? That's
Okay.
good. Perfect. Travis, you have your
Trav.
hand up.
Yep. Hey, can you maybe discuss like the pros or cons of purchasing through a wholesaler over going through the MLS? And what does the lending structures is there any variance there?
Oh, from a lending point of view, I thought Cory was going to answer. From a lending point of view, we don't care. Um, we don't care. So as long as you have a signed contract, then that's all we work with and from. Um, as somebody who sits in this seat as the money lady, though, your wholesaler will need to make sure that they are working with a title company that will put them on settlement.
Mhm.
So, um, you know, that would be the only thing. Like your wholesaler cannot tell the lending company, oh, okay, now, can you add in my $10,000 wholesale fee? Like
Mhm.
that's a no, right? So that would be the only thing, I think, from a lending point of view that I would caution you about with regards to wholesalers, is working with a investor-friendly title company to make sure that the title
point.
work is, is okay. So yeah.
Yeah. And Corey, on that, far as like, what is the different process of purchasing something through the wholesaler versus MLS's, normal
Um,
transaction?
well, so, and I mean, it's to a degree going to process like similarly, wholesalers are just going to have their own, say, risk tolerances for how they want the deal to be structured. So having an honest conversation with them of, hey, like if I have somebody that would be a fit for this home, but they're going to have to go with, say, a conventional mortgage, are you okay with that? Like, are you willing to just kind of like wait that out a little bit? Because instead of maybe a 2 week cash close, this may be 4 to 5 weeks. And is that structure, is that going to structure? I think it's just going to depend on the terms of the deal in general and like whether or not a wholesaler is willing to kind of work with you on that. Versus, anything I guess on the MLS is going to have maybe a little bit more flexibility in that, or just kind of an expectation that this could be a 4 to 5 week close in that. And it kind of leads me to a thought of where I hear, a lot of folks will say that, well, there's no good deals on the MLS, or, anything that ends up in the MLS, people have already looked over. Like I've found that to be fundamentally just like not true. In fact, most of my properties I've bought right off of the MLS. It's there. It's the largest marketplace for housing in general. So you're theoretically going to have just more opportunities and more at bats. I think where that just kind of comes into is just people's fear of just making the offer and say taking the swing. Folks may say, well, I don't want, I've heard agents, I'm not going to write a low ball offer. Like, I don't know. I mean, why? It's all the same to me at the end of the day. It's numbers and letters on a page or on a contract. I'm just going to send it out. It takes me 10 minutes at this point to write a contract, and it takes you 30 seconds to e-sign. So like, what are we really talking about here in terms of like a waste of time or anything like that? You can program it, you can pump offers out and send it. And if you don't ask, you don't receive. I sent out 2 offers last night, one for a duplex. They're asking 250 for it currently, like on the market. I offered 200 cash. And I think I might get it, to be honest with you, after conversations and going round and round now for a couple weeks with them about it. Like, I think we're in a good shot to actually get it. Another home, single family, been on the market for like 90 days. They're asking 280 for it. I offered I think 68 for it, because like I don't really care. At the end of the day, it's to me taking a swing. I know it's significantly less, but I also know realistically, like I know how much rehab that house is going to cost. So I know what the math has to be. It's just a math problem for me to solve. I don't have any emotion tied to it at that point. I'm just taking a swing, and I know there's a chance I'm going to swing and miss, but I'm just need the one to connect, right? Because like I know my numbers well enough to know that if this connects, I'm in really good shape. And if it doesn't, no problem. I'm patient. I can wait for the next opportunities to come around.
You're a beast, Corey. And Travis, any other questions?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Well, it's officially 2 o'clock. So we want to thank everybody for being here during this lunch hour. We hope you learned a lot. Everybody put an exclamation point in the chat for Corey to thank him for being here with us today. And Corey, while people are putting in their exclamation points, tell people how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So certainly you can always reach me like via email, or Corey.king@thecasagroup.com. And then you can find me on Instagram as well. It's just at Corey_King. You can find me on socials there as well. So happy to help if you have any questions regarding the Knoxville market or just investing in general. Certainly, I'm a book. I love just having these conversations with folks. So Cheree, again, thank you so much for having me on and just the opportunity to just share some insights with people.
You are welcome. The exclamation points are coming through, thanking
See you
you.
now. Thank you all.
And if you need money nationwide, if you need money, I am at 571-583-4600. You can call or text that number day or night. If you call or text at night, I'll get back to you in the morning. However, we would love an opportunity to assist you. So thanks so much, everybody. And I hope you have a blessed day. Take care.
Thanks, y'all.
Oh, you want me to repeat the number? I'm sorry. 571-583 833-4600. So,
Love it.
and I'll stay on just for a second for make sure Sandra, sorry, got that. Let me make sure. So,
Cool. Thanks, y'all.
all right. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.